Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this video, we're going to be considering the study article for this week, July 7th to 13th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in, and this one is entitled, Young Brothers Imitate Mark and Timothy. The theme text reads, Bring Mark along with you, for he is helpful to me in the ministry. 2 Timothy 4:11. How the examples of Mark and Timothy can help young brothers to develop the qualities needed to serve others more fully. Let's see it together. The first and second paragraph, the question reads, What challenges could have prevented Mark and Timothy from serving others more fully? And this is what we call their comfort zone. They were with their parents in a comfort situation and they were doing well. Mark was living with his mom in a comfortable home and he was willing to leave that familiar environment to expand his ministry. In a similar situation was Timothy. His father was a Greek, and of course he had some expectations on his son Timothy, like the family business, expand their family business, and taking care for his family. Okay, now paragraph 3, and how much did Paul appreciate Mark and Timothy? And he loved Mark and Timothy like a father. He saw them, he considered them their boys, his boys. He really appreciated this young man. And try to picture this. You are about to die. Who you'd like to have in front of you, next to you. And he was in that situation before he died, and he wanted to see them he wanted them at his side when he realized that his life would soon come to an end. So that was a strong connection between them. Okay, let's discuss about Mark, his faith, his works, and how we can imitate and learn from him. How did Mark show his willingness to serve others? Paragraph 4 and 5. And through his actions, through his words, he was serving with diligence and persistence, not from the time of some days. He was there doing his best. He accepted the assignment of going with his cousin Barnabas, and he was doing so, going with him with the right attitude. And we notice not just the right attitude, but he was a source of great comfort. So we can imagine the qualities he was displaying and the way he treated others. And he had the reputation of being a person, a source of great comfort. Number 6, how did Mark benefit from his association with mature Christians? And we observe he was close to the apostles, like the apostle Peter, and there were remarkable experiences. Of course, Mark experienced with these pillars, men like pillars in the congregation, like Peter. Could you imagine the conversations, the deep conversations he had with Peter about Jesus, about significant experiences with Jesus, because we know Peter was one of the favorites of Jesus, and he met Jesus in person. It's really impressive and outstanding. So, we observe also that sometime later, Mark recorded the Gospel of Mark, and he was not an apostle, but he had this privilege. Number 7. How did a young brother named Sun Wu imitate the example of Mark? And he observed, he was in the congregation, but some brothers were receiving more privileges or assignments, and he was there in the same place, like he was an invisible person in some way, kinda feeling, and we observe he approached one of the elders and asked him about what he could do to receive, to be more helpful, to be more useful in the congregation, to receive more assignments. And this elder suggested that he could serve others, even if his good deeds sometimes went unnoticed. Okay, that's the advice he were given, and of course he put it into practice. And he was there serving his brothers, the older ones, taking them to the meetings in his car, in his vehicle. And he said later, I came to understand what it means to serve others more fully. The implications of this: be patient, be nice, having consideration to others, practical ways. Imitate Timothy, show loving concern for others. Now let's discuss about Timothy. Number 8. Why did Paul choose Timothy as a traveling companion? And as we've been considering, Paul considered Timothy like his son, like his spiritual son, the son that probably he never had. And that's great to see, to observe how the relationship between them was very strong, and the affection they had each other. And a very important quality of Timothy was his good reputation. He had this good reputation. Okay, number 9. How did Timothy show that he truly cared about his brothers and sisters? And he was a person showing empathy, great empathy. He was not well known just because he was the CEO in his day, but because of his great qualities. He was displaying these significant qualities: a great person, a great human being, not because of his assignment, but because his qualities. And that's really important and remarkable about Timothy. So we know and we read that Timothy was this kind of person that he noticed, if he noticed someone is crying, he was crying with the person, showing empathy. So some people today consider this action like a weakness, not like a strength. And we notice even Jesus was crying sometimes, and we never say Jesus is a weak person or was a weak person just because he was expressing his feelings, but this is completely normal, this mentality among some people today, that man, a real man, he never should cry. Well, that's not what the Bible really teaches about what implies to be a real man. Number 10. How did a brother named Wu Jie learn to show more personal interest in others? So, he found it difficult to engage other brothers and sisters in conversation, so he asked a counsel to a brother, to an elder, and the elder urged him to think about what the other person might be interested in. And this brother received the counsel, received the advice, he applied it, and eventually he understood how it works. Now he finds it easier to have meaningful conversations with others, but the main purpose is because he liked to help them about his or their concerns. Okay, now he understands them, he feels them better. Number 11, how can young brothers develop personal interest in others who are in their congregation? And the first thing, and it's very remarkable and important, they should know who are the brothers and sisters in their congregation and respect them, showing good manners. So there are some practical advice. For example, ask them how they are doing and listen them with attention. What about helping them to download some updates for the JW library app, or downloading another thing, another stuff from our website? What about helping them to moving some things, repairing something, or getting things outside to give them a hand? Or what about arranging to work with them in the service work, in the preaching work? The main point is taking the initiative to help others. Okay, now let's discuss about some benefit from Paul's fatherly advice. Number 12, how can young men benefit from Paul's advice to Timothy? And the first main point is by reading, by studying the counsel, the advice that Paul shared to Timothy. And after they read, after they study, the next step is apply it in their lives. That's the main point. Okay, number 13, what is involved in developing a personal attachment to Jehovah? And this is very important because godly devotion is not just having this routine every week, like attending meetings, going to the preaching work. It's part of it, but having godly devotion implies a deep relationship with Jehovah, with the Father. And think for a moment what the person is doing when he's alone. That's one of the main points to reveal if the person has godly devotion. In front of the rest of the people, of the friends, anyone, anybody may go to the service, may go to the meeting. The main point is, what about when the person is alone, in his privacy? What is he doing? And that reveals if the person has godly devotion. 14. What should be our goal when we read the Bible? Illustrate. And this is not about a competition who is the person who had read the Bible more times than the rest of the friends in the congregation. That's not a competition. It's about to drawing closer to Jehovah, to strengthen our faith, our spirituality, to get peace and comfort from the scriptures. That's the main point. We have the example of the rich young ruler, and he was asking Jesus about how he could receive the everlasting life. And of course, he was a fellow believer, he was an active person in his religion, and Jesus asked him a couple of questions, and this young ruler responded to Jesus that he was doing so. He was a devout person at the temple, and of course, all the other implications that implied to be a good servant, a good worshiper in Jesus' day. And of course, he was expecting Jesus may say something like, "Keep it up," or "Well done." But that's not exactly what happened. In fact, Jesus encouraged him to share with others his richness. And of course, he never was doing so. He never feel like doing so. So he was bad. He felt bad because Jesus answered. And this teaches us, now we know the story, but what do we need to draw closer to Jehovah and to serve others more fully? So it's not just about going to the meetings, going to the service, it's about how we can share with others our blessings, our physical or material blessings. Why should a young brother give attention to the example he sets? And that's what we call freeness of speech. If the brothers notice he's in the ministry, he's attending meetings, that's very important and beneficial. He'll feel more confident talking about this subject because he has freeness of speech. Okay, number 16. In what 5 areas can young Christians serve as an example? And one of these is about the way we treat or we talk others. How do we talk to the elder brothers and sisters in the congregation? How do we talk to the children in the congregation? How do we talk to the young ones in the congregation? Do we respect them? Do we appreciate them? That's very significant and remarkable. Okay, question B, how can a young brother become an example in speaking? And this is about thinking before he speaks. Thinking before he speaks. So, if he lives at home with his parents, he could and should express appreciation more often for what they are doing for him. Very remarkable and beautiful point. And after the meeting, he could encourage someone or giving a compliment about his good work at the meeting, and of course highlighting what the person did. And very important, number 17, what will help a young brother to reach his spiritual goals? And the answer we find at 2 Timothy 2:22, flee from youthful desires but pursue righteousness. So flee from these joyful desires. This is a list. Of course, we don't have a list. We need to use our conscience, trained by Bible principles. But many people today are trapped in these desires, of course, in moral desires. And of course, the paragraph is encouraging the young ones to have a good balance in their schedule. If much time they spend participating in sports, browsing the internet, or playing video games, eventually it'll be worse. So it's not a sin having some fun, having some interaction, using internet or video games. That's not a sin. The main sin is when all these activities absorb our schedule. Now we live to fun instead of we live to Jehovah. We must be careful. Serving others brings blessings. Number 18, why can we say that Mark and Timothy led full and satisfying lives? Of course, they had and they went through some difficulties, but satisfying lives. And of course, they met very important servants like spiritual giants in the congregation in the first century. So now they are ruling with Jesus at heaven. Can you imagine that? And that's because they set a good example of service, of serving others. Why should young brothers give attention to Paul's advice to Timothy, and what will be the result? And this is very important because Jehovah loves the young ones, and he has great expectations and the young ones. He liked to avoid them suffering from this world, and one way is teaching us his ways, giving us this advice, and now our part is applied. So friends, that's a wrap for this video. Thank you so much for joining us in this consideration. We hope you have a wonderful day and hope to see you in our next video.